Hi, welcome back. This is part 7 of our discussion of Caribbean geology. Uh, we will now talk about the Bahamas and the Virgin Islands. We have finished our discussion of the Greater Antilles, and after the Bahamas and the Virgin Islands, we will go into the Lesser Antilles. Technically, we can say that the Bahamas are in the Atlantic Ocean and they're not part of the Caribbean. However, these islands are part of the Lucayan archipelago along with Turk and Caicos and are generally associated with the Caribbean. Well, they certainly form part of what we call the West Indies. The islands of the Bahamas comprise about 700 islands and keys and around 2,400 rocky mounds. The islands are flat and low, basically low topography, resembling the Florida coast and the Florida Keys. On a personal note, immediately after I became a certified open water scuba diver, my first diving destination was the island of Bimini in the Bahamian chain. The Bahamas are separated from Florida by the Florida Channel and from Cuba by the Bahama Channel. On the east side, the Bahamas platform drops very sharply into the typical depth of the Atlantic Ocean, more than 15,000 feet. Now, the greater part of the Bahama platform is covered by very shallow water. We're talking 18 to 25 feet in depth. But submarine channels and canyons do cut through this platform. The region that encompasses the Bahamas may have actually been emergent to begin with, and the submarine canyons that we see today actually cut by subaerial streams. Well, that's still somewhat debatable. Uh, in any case, the area underwent subsidence as much as 10,000 feet during Mesozoic and Tertiary time. Reefs began to build up as the subsidence continued, during which times the reefs grew not only vertically but also somewhat laterally. Reef buildup has been very prominent in the history of the Bahamas. The emergence of the platform and the current island configuration began in Pliocene time. Whether or not the present day submarine canyons that we find in this area are of subaerial erosion origin or caught by the submarine turbidity currents is still a debatable topic. But as far as the Bahamas go, the bottom line is that carbonate sediments are dominant in this area. Uh, the lithologies that were encountered in a deep well in Andros Island were summarized by Erdely in his excellent work in 1951. And those are shown in the little table that I'm giving you here. Notice that Cretaceous rocks occur from about 8,700 feet to more than 14,500 feet. And those are basically dolomite with some limestone. Paleocene strata from about 4,600 feet to 8,700 feet is also dolomite with some chalky limestone. The Eocene strata from about 2,200 feet to 4,600 feet is a sequence of alternating limestone and dolomite beds with some coquina. And the Miocene to Holocene strata, in essence from the surface to about 2,200 feet, is coquina, limestone, and a little bit of dolomite. Okay, now we move into the area of the Virgin Islands. The Virgin Islands lie along the northern boundary of the Caribbean tectonic plate. These islands are located at the eastern end of the Greater Antilles and at the northern end of the Lesser Antilles, if you will, at the transition zone between strike slip motion and subduction activity. Islands in the northern section have higher elevations than those in the south. Please refer to the little sketch map. Uh, Mount Sage on the island of Tortola and Crown Mountain on the island of St. Thomas stand at elevations of 1,709 feet above sea level and 1,551 feet above sea level, respectively. Now, in contrast, Mount Eagle in San Croix reaches an elevation of only 1,161 feet. The interior landforms of the northern igneous section are dominated by steep slopes and deep guts. The Virgin Islands are absolutely gorgeous, beautiful islands. Here you can see some views of St. John with the headlands and the bays and the beautiful scenery. Now, geologically speaking, the area of the Virgin Islands might be subdivided into two east-northeast, west-southwest trending tectonic uh, zones separated by the Anegada Trough. Please refer to the sketch map. The northern section is dominated by igneous lithologies and is a continuation of Puerto Rico. It encompasses the U.S. Virgin Islands of St. Thomas and St. John, as well as the British Virgin Islands of Tortola, Virgen Gorda, and Anegada. This area exhibits north trending, steeply dipping beds related to post-Eocene tectonics and is not associated with the intrusion of the Virgen Gorda batholith that we will talk about later. The southern section, in contrast, is primarily formed by sedimentary units. It contains a submarine ridge that is south of and parallel to the Anegada Trough, in addition to the island of St. Croix. The island of St. Croix is characterized by a central graben that is filled with tertiary strata bound by horse blocks of Cretaceous age. The bottom line is this. Rocks in the Virgin Islands are older in the north and younger in the south. A description of this strata is given in this little table that I have presented for you here. Starting with the northern area, we can say that igneous rocks in the north are Cretaceous, but the strata is of Miocene age in St. Croix. Igneous rocks in the north are both intrusive and extrusive. Keratophyres. That's a fancy name for igneous rocks of intermediate composition. These are mainly lava flows, volcanic breccia, and tabular igneous dikes. Lesser amounts of basalt, gabbro, and radiolayer and chert can also be found. The igneous lithic units are overlain by clastic and carbonate sediments. In the southern area, this is dominated by a sedimentary section that contains fossiliferous shale, sandstone, turbidites, conglomerates, and tophaceous deposits. The youngest sedimentary units are mainly shale with interbedded conglomerates overlain by foraminifera-rich and gastropod-rich limestones. I should mention to you that in this area we have two tonalite batholith. Now remember that tonalite is similar to granodiorite. The batholiths are the Virgen Gorda batholith in the island of Virgen Gorda and the narrow batholith. Uh, this one is positioned between St. John and Tortola. Diabase and diorite dikes were fed from this batholith, resulting in contact metamorphism of some of the Eocene rocks in the area. On a personal note, I will tell you that one of my most memorable diving experiences was in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. along with a group of scuba divers, we descended to a shipwreck. Now, inside this ship was a large nurse shark. And as some of my buddies started to uh, snap pictures of this animal, it became spooked. And as it swam away, with a flick of its tail, it took the mask off of my face. I am lucky that it didn't knock me unconscious or drive my regulator all the way down my throat. So, needless to say, this is an experience that I wouldn't forget. Well, we have now completed part 7, and so we have talked about the Greater Antilles, uh, the Bahamas, and the Virgin Islands. So our next stop is the Lesser Antilles, one of my favorite areas of the Caribbean.